Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of the InnerFight Podcast. My name is Marcus Smith. Thank you so much for being here today. Today, my guest is here to talk all about pain. Not all of the show is about pain. And actually, we soon learn that the management of pain and understanding of pain is really just a heightened state of self-awareness. I first met Nick about 6 or 7 years ago, and I always found his approach to his profession, physiotherapy, really, really intriguing. He wasn't the traditional physiotherapist. He empowered me. He asked me more questions. He wasn't your standard, get in, a little bit of a crack, a little bit of manipulation, massage. Here's 2 exercises to do that I know that you won't do, and get out. He made me think, he made me question what was actually wrong with me, but he always made me feel like he was with me on the journey. He cared. And in caring, he was very different to a lot of therapists that I had been treated by. Since then, I've had the honor of sharing clients with him. I've had the privilege of referring people to him, and they pretty much are always happy with the results. In the last few years, his business has changed in a certain way. We talk about that in the show. We also talk about how he's able to treat people as a physio online, which is somehow quite revolutionary, especially when we think about human connection and the amount that we talk in the show about human connection. But above all, at just under 100 kilos, he is I wouldn't say a teddy bear of a man, but he is got a huge physical presence, an amazing energy, but one of the kindest souls, and is possibly one of the best therapists I have ever had the pleasure of being treated by. This week's show announcements, very straightforward. I can't actually forget them. December the 9th is Celebrate Fitness here at InnerFight. No matter who you are, no matter what you do, no matter what you want to do, or no matter what you have done in this year, we welcome you to Celebrate Fitness. Saturday morning, we'll have a workout. We'll start at 8:30, give or take. We're a little bit more relaxed. 8:30 for about an 8:45 start. Be here at 8:30. Don't be late. And then after the workout, we will go and have some lunch together and enjoy a little bit of community end of year cheer as well. 9th of December, keep it in your diaries. On the same weekend, it is Dubai Fitness Championships 2023, probably the biggest and one of the oldest. I think it first started in 2013. So this is probably about the 10-year anniversary maybe, or the 11th year anniversary, 2012, 2013. Fitness competition, which will see CrossFit athletes and also some hybrid athletes from around the world descend on Dubai and participate over the weekend for the title of Dubai Fitness Championship 2023. Our own Toby Buckland is competing. In the past, a number of our coaches have competed, and also CrossFit Games athletes, CrossFit Games previous champions have competed in the Dubai Fitness Championships. That's on the same weekend. We'll celebrate fitness here in the morning. We'll then go and have some lunch together, and then we'll go down to the tennis stadium where that's being held, and we will support the guys, definitely support Toby down there. Next weekend, or the coming weekend, depends when you're listening to this, on the 1st and 2nd of December, which is normally a public holiday. The 2nd of December marks National Day here in Dubai, and of course on the 30th of November is also Martyrs Day. As we know so far, there is no additional public holidays. You just get Saturday and Sunday as normal. So Friday, the 1st of December, which maybe we're expecting to be a public holiday, will not actually be a public holiday, and that's fine. We'll be open anyway. It really doesn't make any difference. That's it for this week's show announcements. Let's get into the show. This is episode number 858 of the InnerFight Podcast, Managing Pain with Nick Jordan. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to another episode of the show, and welcome. It's probably a little bit overdue, this, mate. Nick Jordan, how are you?
Very good, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
I don't know why. It's been, mate, when did you first treat me? 2018.
I think it's pre-marathon.
Yeah.
30 days, 30 marathons. I think that's around there. When
was that was about the time, wasn't it? So it's taken me
shortly before, I would say about a year before.
5 years to repay the great treatment that you give to me and the great treatment that you give to everyone, mate. Let's start there. Talk to us a little about what do you actually do?
Well, I'm a physiotherapist by trade. That means keep going.
Yeah, it's all good.
Do you cut it together after?
Yeah, it's all good.
So I'm a physiotherapist, working in a clinic. I do manual therapy, rehab training, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Now, people hear physiotherapy, most people think is somebody who's, digging the elbow in, sticking needles in and whatnot. And though that's, part of my toolbox, it's not my main passion. It's my passion. It's pretty similar to yours. It's probably why we're sitting here today as well. It's just, empowering people and get people better. And in my opinion, you get people better mostly by, educating them, taking this like fear avoidance away and empowering them to actually how to fix their own issues. So if they come across similar stuff again, they know a bit what to do. So over time, they should actually need me less. It's a bit grotesque because I shoot myself in my own foot.
I was going to say, mate, you're kind of doing yourself out of business.
Yeah, I tell my patients usually, my job, they said, you don't want to see me again right now? I said, no, I'm trying to get rid of them. I try to get all your friends, but ideally not yourself for the same problem. So that's what I do in a clinic. I've been around for quite a while, and this for a bit over 20 years.
Yeah, you've been in Dubai
17 years.
Sure.
Doing this for a little bit over 20 years.
Wow.
And started an online business as well where I do remote rehab coaching.
Yeah.
Therapy. When I say remote therapy, people think I'm just going to Zoom calls and ask people to do 10 reps and 3 sets. That's not how it works. It's more, it's again, the same thing essentially. It's assessing things. What is the problem? Educating people about what their current conditions or limitations might stem from, and then make them plans, and not just, it's self-treatment, self-release techniques, but also then training plans, which is where we have, a lot of overlap, because ultimately that's what rehab is getting somebody stronger, more mobile and more capable.
People that are listening, I think almost like you said, will be thinking that's not a traditional perception of physiotherapy, and it's probably we could probably zoom out a little bit. The medical industry as a whole, we go to when we're sick or not feeling good, or our backs bent over double, like we were talking about earlier, our friend Chris, and we're like, fix me.
Yeah.
Whereas you come, and you said it right, mate. This is why we've always probably had a good relationship, because you come from an area that's like, actually, I don't want to see you that much, but you're very rare. Mm-hmm. Because most people, anyone that's listening that's had, lots of people would have had knee surgeries, and with a knee surgery comes a standard 12 physiotherapy sessions, and you're the physio and you're going to come and see me Monday and Wednesday for the coming 6 weeks, and everything's going to be fine. But it never is. So you're almost at this opposite end of the spectrum where you could sell people these 12 sessions, but you're like, I don't know. And that's where we always got on from the start. Is like, I don't know, but we'll try this and try that. My question is, where does that come from? If all other practitioners are, not all of them, because I have to be careful because I've had some practitioners on the show as well, but a lot of practitioners are literally, mate, they're locking us in for 12 sessions. Yeah. Where does your alternative approach come from?
Very good question.
It's quite long-winded, mate, but that's, because it's not normal.
Well, for me, it kind of is, but it's an evolution as well a bit. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've never been a friend of this like standard treatment protocols. There are certain protocols which work and they have to be in place, but it's, if let's say somebody comes after knee surgery, as you mentioned, right? So in the beginning, there's obviously a lot of stuff. This is a bit overwhelming for a patient. This is now post-operative or post-injury. Yeah. It's scary. Somebody has never been injured. So they probably need me a bit more then, because I need to encourage them. I need to explain to them, look, this pain is perfectly normal. asking me where that stems from. I had a ton of injuries myself. That's how I ended up in this industry in the first place. And I think you would agree with this. Pain and injuries are good teachers, right?
Yeah.
And you learn. I could never do what I do today if I would never have been injured. I believe it's actually impossible to be a good therapist or medical practitioner if you treat stuff you never went through once.
That's
at least,
interesting.
Probably multiple times yourself. And so it helps to relate to patients and realize, okay, he knows, he's been there, and that's exactly how I feel. And you tell them, look, that is dangerous, or that is not dangerous. Most stuff is not dangerous, right?
Yeah.
It's just painful, and pain means scary, but it shouldn't be. And so in the beginning, I would say, when he said these 12 sessions, it's not that I never see anybody at a certain frequency, but what will never happen with me is to say, okay, twice a week, full stop. That's not what I do. But in the beginning, I have a lot to explain, a lot to teach, and the quicker the penny drops, right? When you realize, okay, now I got him on board, he walks out already more relaxed because he's more confident, and then you need to build some basic programs, right? You need to give them certain skills, you need to make sure the execution is good, and once I feel like people got it, they execute things well, then you can literally just make them programs and say, look, do this until, let's say, 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and come back. With others might be in a week's time. And then we adapt, right? You scale things up, because I always say rehab is training in the presence of an injury most of the times. I mean, there are others, right? There's people with just a lot of pain and they really need your help. I mean, I'm doing the manual therapy stuff as well. I do, mobilize or manipulate the joint or release that trigger point. But ultimately, it's like learning a language, right? You go to a language lesson, you don't speak the language, you need to practice it. And so putting that into practice in your daily life and how you can do this. I try to develop techniques how people can do a similar thing to themselves on demand for free, whenever they want, right? And I find that's empowering. And then obviously make this stronger. So I didn't really answer your question, but where do I go? I don't know. Yeah. It's probably own experiences. It's also what makes sense to me.
Did you have a bad experience with a physio when you were younger?
No, never. Quite the opposite, actually. But not in this way. I didn't have somebody who said, you don't need to come back. Not somebody like myself. I just had a really good dude, a Dutch guy I used to play handball with. And, when I hurt myself, I had to go to physio. And then he was there, and he was a really good guy and treated me well. Different treatment approach. At the time, that was, again, makes me sound old now, but that's more than 20 years ago, right? So
we are old now, mate.
Yeah. And he was different, but I was 17 or 18, you heal by yourself, right? That's the thing. You injure yourself, you bounce back automatically. You don't have to put any input, really. Yeah. And I didn't really. If I'm very honest, I probably didn't. Yeah. And then you have more injuries, and then once you hit the 30s, you realize, I actually have to work come back from this, right? And so because you're in your prime, you're 18, 20, you're full of testosterone, and
you're elastic.
You're that. And when you get injured, your metabolism is like skyrocketing in full anabolic state, right? And so, and then later on, all of a sudden, that strategy doesn't work. And so I learned through this when I all of a sudden realized, hang on a second, I tore the hamstring, and it takes me. Can I curse?
You can say whatever you want.
It takes me bloody ages to get over this, and then realize I actually have to do something myself. And actually didn't go to physio very much. I just tried to figure out myself. And I think that's probably really long loop, but that's where it's come from.
Let's jump into that age thing, because I think that is interesting for people. Both of us have white in our beards now, mate, but I think we still believe that we're 18 and we try and move.
Why not?
We try and move like we're 18. Yeah. But some of those fundamental things that you said, metabolism, hormone levels, are completely different now. So recovery and repair takes us a lot longer. Yeah. My question here is, we all know that. Yeah. I think most people know that. You treat people, but how do you help people manage that from a psychological standpoint? Because like we've just admitted, we still think that we're 18. Yeah. So how do you help people from a psychological standpoint? And I'm trying to speak to the person that has had a niggly hamstring and it's niggled for quite a while and it's not going away. Like, how do they manage, whereas they know that, I mean, mate, I remember when I was playing rugby, we'd train on a Tuesday night, you'd have a little pull in your hamstring, but it would be fine for Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
exactly.
it just doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
So how do we wrap our head around that?
Again, I mean, big part is education. I mean, first of all, I try to lead by example, like yourself, right? I think we're pretty much the same age, actually, and it's practice what you preach, right? I can't come here and just being totally unfit and whatnot. Not that I would want to be like this in the first place. It comes pretty easy to me, but that's the credibility. And I think making people relate. I tell them, it's like, if you want to see an injury list of mine, I can give one to you. And here I am. I jump, I lift weights, I run, I do everything.
Yeah.
And if I can't do something, I work until I can. And I think it's education. That's a big part of our job, and it's a big part of your job, is making people understand that this, pain is not dangerous, niggle is not dangerous, but it can become an issue. At the same time, you don't try to fearmonger either, right? I'm not telling people like, oh, you have a niggle, be careful, because that could turn into something catastrophic, because that's counterproductive. I do actually the opposite, try and encourage them, so listen, right? Actually move, you actually feel better. And majority of pain is like this. And with the age thing, I mean, I always tell people I don't believe in age. Yet, a little bit I do, but then I don't. You know what I mean? It's like in terms of what I want to move until I'm old and grey. But if I look at over the last 10, 20 years, the way I move or what I do or the volume I do, I had to change. And you need to, it's almost like you're getting to know your body new, right? You would do a training volume, easy, and today you feel like I can do it. But then I realized actually my body's getting more fatigued and more achy, and these days, before I would feel, guilty when I don't do a training session. Today I know like a good night's sleep is probably better than that training session when I'm feeling exhausted, and that takes a moment to, and sometimes you learn the hard way, right, to get into this. And the other thing is, I mean, as he said, hormone levels, your metabolism, all this, that's a fact, right? I mean, age is a fact.
Yeah.
But how you let it affect you, I think you can change, and how you can, and that's what you guys do here, very successful, and how you biohack that is sleep. I believe good ingredients is like, enough sleep, hydrate really well, good quality, like food, as in proper food, not, all the crap, like real food, right? Stuff which has been around for the last 100 years and not just for the last 20 years. Activity, I deliberately say not sport, because for some, being active, right? For somebody that might be going walking every day, for somebody that might be running, for somebody might be weightlifting, and something that makes you happy, right? And that's just the last ingredient is happiness, and I think that comes from all of those above. Yeah,
if you did all three of those, you'd get number 4, wouldn't you?
And for me, my gene pool is not great if I look at my family history, and so for me, I think it's a semi-conscious decision to say, well, I'm going to set myself up with better odds, and saying just pull all the strings I can. So, and I believe you can change that to a large extent as well.
So when we take that into a treatment room, and it would be unprofessional for me to ask you specifically about your clients, mate, but where I'm going with this, we take this into a treatment room, and you've got 30 minutes or 45 minutes, or, I mean, whenever I see you, mate, you give me about an hour, and it's fantastic, and sometimes it's more painful than when I came out, but most of the time I feel better. But that's a side note. As the therapist, and you can sometimes feel that, let's stay with the hamstring, that there's actually not much. I mean, you felt a lot of hamstrings in your time. Yeah. You know what a grade 2, you know what a grade 3, and you know what. Yeah. How do we get it over to people that those 3 things and leading to happiness, so our sleep, our nutrition, and some form of good movement, because patients come as patients to see, it goes back to what I was saying at the start a little bit, to see a medical practitioner, but there's nothing there, and that actually the solution is in those 3 things. How do you get that? Like, it must be quite a crazy dynamic. I don't want you to say that 50% of people that come in actually don't have anything wrong, but I'd love you to say that. But
that's probably true. Well, it depends. Like structurally wrong, well, that's very different, right? There's two things, because pain is an experience, right? Or subtly, it's not always pain. It's stiffness, pain, discomfort, whatever you want to call it. Is ultimately an experience, and it's a part of like. How many times have I been there, right? If you've had pain a lot, you have injury a lot, you have a different background, meaning you have a completely different foundation to know. If somebody is like, kids are interesting, for instance. If you have a 9 or 10-year-old kid who, let's say, they have a wry neck, they can't turn their head because they've been too much on the iPad and studying and whatnot. usually the first with the iPad, but. And when you treat them, right, and you try to release something, they say, tell me when it hurts, because you're uncomfortable, it's normal, pulling is normal, I don't want you to feel like you're really in pain. Yeah. They don't know, actually, because they have no experience with pain, right?
There's no benchmark.
I find that really tough, and they say, yeah, it hurts. Do I have to stop? And so, like, they have no benchmark, exactly. And so I think people have a lot of injuries, that's easier. But people who know me, like right now, I mean, during my treatments, I talk. Right, I can, if you let me.
Non-stop.
Sometimes a bit too much, yeah.
If you're going for a peaceful half hour, take earplugs.
Exactly. It's just tell me to shut up. But I talk as well. I mean, some of this is talk shit, but also mostly it's all because I constantly give them as much knowledge as possible about this, right? And I think, again, a big part of our job is to inform people. And I try to I want to teach them like how I assess the situation. Somebody comes in with an injury, I need to decide, right, is this structural or is this functional? Is it hardware, is it software, right? Because hardware is a different story. Like there's totally different management plans. If you, let's say, I don't know, twist your ankle on a trail run and you can see like it's pitch black blues and it swell up within seconds, that's what I extract from us. That takes a different assessment than somebody twists it hurts as much, but it kind of, walk it off and it's stiff after a rest, and which is pretty normal. So I tell people, it's like, look, that isn't, what's a normal reaction, what's a not normal reaction? Yeah. And so if I say, look, it's not structural, tell them, look, this is nothing structural, therefore it's not dangerous, meaning movement probably will make this better. So you just need to find the right amount of movement to expose yourself to. Yeah. And often you can see if the penny drops or it doesn't. If it doesn't, you go down a different route. It's like learning, right? Some people are visual learners, some people are more, they need to write summaries, etc. And it's the same with, in my clinic room, is you can tell when the message hit the target, right? And so, yeah, it's basically self-education. I'm sure I lost the plot a bit. It was about people.
Yeah, about people presenting or thinking it's an injury, but actually they just need to sleep well, eat better, and move more. Yeah.
I mean, one of the other things is, and this is why I'm not just prescribing exercise. You know that I use my hands. I'm a manual therapist, and I think. But for me, this is a tool. Whatever you do, if it's a manipulation, if it's a mobilization, deep tissue work, if it's an exercise, a stretch, it's in my room. What I'm trying to achieve is to show people you can change it, right? You come in with a pain, and ideally actually let them do something. Let's say you have like a knee pain that can't crouch down. You put them into a couch stretch, for instance, for 2 minutes, retest, and you can see literally their eyes like, what just happened? And I tell them, listen, I haven't even touched you. It was all you, right? What does that mean? Yeah. And I let them reflect it, right? And so what that means, like, that is better. So yeah, but like, why is it better? Because it's not. If this is a torn meniscus or a cartilage damage, that's not going to happen, is it? Yeah. And so then it's okay, I can actually change, and that's the most empowering move. And from that moment, they know, okay, well, maybe I should actually move instead of rest, which unfortunately is still prescribed so much.
That's your, and it's almost coaching.
Yeah.
It's not physio.
No, it is.
That's one of the most unique things about you, though, mate. I think is that it's almost like, okay, go and do this in the room, and you have people that are envisaging a physio room. Nick's is probably a little bit different. I don't know if it's in your new one, but definitely in the old one. You built a squat rack. There's still there. All sorts of different toys in there. That it's almost like you're in a small gym. It's similar to the book, The Inner Game of Tennis, where you're actually just making people aware of what's going on in their body. And you said it, you're empowering people and you haven't actually touched them. You've just gone, okay, one thing that might fix this knee pain is the couch stretch. Just be here and do it for a couple of minutes. And I imagine some people are like, hey, hang on a minute. I came in here for you to touch me and manipulate me, and you're having me do this. But a minute later, the pain's gone, which that in itself is a completely unique approach to physiotherapy.
Yeah, it is. But believe it or not, I lose patience over that. Right?
I can imagine, mate. I want
like,
to be
why
touched.
Are you not exactly? Why are you not touched? Well, because you're pain-free. You just did it. What do you want me to do? Like, we fixed it. You fixed yourself.
You fixed it.
And this is when there's a different level of perception. It's absolutely nuts, right? But you have people that don't come back, even though they're better, right? Because they haven't gotten what they came for. And that's the weird thing in our job, right? I mean, I had this patient a few weeks ago. Like, it's now a bit longer, but anyway, it's that stiff back, right? Had a whatever beauticians are don't want to go against any profession. Doesn't matter. Like, usually I get a crack, right? And the crack is that magic thing, which, like, this is a mix of physiology and placebo, and and it's fine. And like, I do that too, right? But so I try to make the patient understand that, look, what you have right now might not be exact same thing, because I have certain red flags here, and so I don't know you. I see the first time. I prefer not to do this, but I have other ways how I can make you better. Is that okay? So yes. So I mobilize, right? It's like test, painful, restricted. You do a few things, more gentle things, mobilizations, where you know you can control and there might not be an underlying condition you make worse. Because that's the important thing for us, so you don't do any harm.
Yeah.
Which is very difficult to do, by the way. That's what most people understand. It's really, if you try to hurt someone, it would be very, very difficult to do, like harm. But anyway, so you treat this patient, and then they get up, they bend over, no problem, no pain, full range of motion. It's like, good. So let's maybe book a follow-up, give you a few things you can do yourself. So, well, you're not going to crack me. So, what do you mean? So you're not going to? It's like, no. I mean, what? Like, why do you want to crack? We just fixed your problem, right? It's like, I don't have to. But they didn't get what they came for. Yeah. But they didn't come for getting pain-free. They came for getting that thing that has helped them in the past.
Mental.
And I try to tell them, it's like, well, the reason why you repeatedly end up in clinics is because of that, because you haven't really fixed it.
I remember when I used to play a lot of rugby, I wasn't that great at warming up. Yeah. And if I could crack my lower back and crack my neck, I was ready to play. Yeah. And the days that I couldn't crack it, psychologically, I wasn't ready to play, because it's exactly what you said. Like, when people come in, do you ever say to them, what do you expect from me today?
I do.
Do you?
More and more, yes. Not always, but sometimes, sometimes it's clear. Right. And sometimes I say, okay, so what do you expect from me today? What do you think you need from me today? Yeah. I should ask this probably more often, but in some cases crystal clear. But sometimes, you do an interview, you ask all the questions and ask a ton of questions, because it saves me time to where I'm going to go and look for the problem. Yeah. And sometimes I feel like I'm not quite sure why they're here. That's when I definitely ask that question, because you don't want patients to leave disappointed.
Yeah, of course.
But if somebody leaves pain-free, their problem solved, and they leave disappointed, that's beyond me, right? But
if they wanted to come for their back crack, and you haven't done it, their measure of success is not pain anymore. Their measure of success is hearing their back go. And if you don't deliver it, then.
And I've done once in a while, like, okay, lay down, just give you a crack, that's fine. I can be a bit, but it's the same with, like, in your therapy, like, if you have a new client comes in, okay, I want to get jacked like you, want to look like you, want to be like you guys, and then you actually start with them where we need to work on your first core stability, basic kind of foundations, right? Yeah. They're also going to go like, oh, that was shit. Yeah. Right? Because I want to throw on barbells like I see on Instagram. It's like, but there's certain foundations. It's like, the metaphor I use is when you learn a language, you need to learn the grammar. You need to learn the vocabulary. Yeah. You just want to go and chat, but that's not how it works, unfortunately. Yeah. And I tell them, look, we do a bit, what I do then usually, I give them some of the grammar and vocabulary, and then we go to the fun stuff as well. So I throw in stuff which is cool, the cool shit, but which makes them feel like, okay, I'm working. Yes. But we still need to work those, and then we slowly kind of try to close the gap. So that's how I try to mitigate that.
Is the landscape changing, mate? Is it becoming more challenging? Like, did people used to walk in for some physiotherapy, have quite low expectations because pain is the main sort of measure? I've got a hamstring pain, or I can feel it and I've gone out. Is the landscape of people's expectations changing a lot?
I think it's always been a mixed, it's like, I mean, Dubai is probably a bit of a special place, there's this service mentality here, right? There's no arguing about that.
Yeah.
You have people just like fix me, and I do that too, It's like, but I think people, movers, like if they're runners or if they're, CrossFitters, gym goers, whatever your thing may be, they have this high intrinsic motivation to get better, and I think they're open to the idea of I put something in there. And I think, the whole, like Kelly started with his mobility watch, etc. He made mobility sexy, right? I mean, I'm thanking him forever.
We've got him here somewhere.
Sure, somewhere there.
Supple leopard, I don't know where he is.
No, the dude, he did us a huge favor, and I think he's got a good brain till today. I think I really admire his work. But what I love him for is that he made, before if you've asked somebody to do mobility work, it's like, get out of here, I just want to get strong. Yeah. But he made it kind of, bit more attractive.
Yeah, he did.
And so in that sense, I think it does have change, but you still have the other ones as well. The hardest is people come in and they want you to fix them, and you actually want to almost prove them to look, if you actually do certain things yourself, you don't need me to fix it. Or you have those who say, shall I come in once a month? And for maintenance, I say, like, mate, maintenance is what you do.
Yeah, I can do this. Empowerment, isn't it?
Yeah. But they say, but this is, look, I don't mind to do this. I can do this, but honestly, you sarcasm. So you just put my daughter through school, and that's fine by me. But I want to be transparent with this. It's but some people need this. To be fair, I don't want to mock this either. It's just,
it's a similar scenario. Like we've been running the gym for a number of years, mate, and sometimes I look at some clients that are coming, and I'll look at how often they're coming, and I feel I need to check in whether we're actually serving them in the way that they want to be served. Yeah. And, I'll give a guy a call and I'll say, listen, obviously appreciate your support, your business, and like you said, putting my daughter through school or whatever it is. And are you happy? And they're like, I'm absolutely happy. Because And this is the difference is because if I wasn't coming and doing 3 personal training sessions a week and accumulating that bill through the year, I'd be in a lot worse scenario. Mm-hmm. So if I want to come and do a physio maintenance session for whatever that means once a month, it keeps me accountable to you, because they respect you as the physio, and they might. Maybe someone, a lot of the time, I've gone to see doctors and paid to see doctors to learn stuff. Yeah. Like every time I come into your room, I learn something, and I go home and I make notes. Yeah. Whether it's how you've spoken to me as a patient, or whether it's the movement you've done. Multiple times I've come into your room, mate, and I've made notes, and then when it's been the right time, I've deployed that with a client. So I'm happy to. I'm not happy for you to touch me too much, mate, but I'm happy I'm happy to get those professional skills as well. So it's interesting. What is something that's quite clinical is actually, I see you as a coach. Yeah. And I don't know, and I feel and I'm trying to make a loop of this because we're going more towards where I know that you're heading and the stuff that you're doing, but that seems where you're going as well, which is again, that's why you're hard to get into, because no one else treats it like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to actually close that loop, like bring that together myself when you say you're like a coach. And I believe it's, coaches and I believe coaches are therapists and therapists are coaches. Like therapy, modern therapy is more and more coaching, because it's more than just doing something on someone passive, right? Yeah. I mean, again, I talked about, I made it sound bad, like manipulation. I'm not against it at all. I do this myself, but it's a tool to get someone to move better, but the solution is to move. You know what I mean? It's not the crack that keeps you better, it's the movement. So I use whatever tools, and whether that's whatever, it doesn't even have to make sense to me. If it makes you feel better, And it empowers you, and after empowers and makes it possible for you to move after. Then that's suited the purpose,
good, yeah.
And that's fine. Whether it's, early in the process when I studied, there was still this whole electrotherapy stuff around. We learned it.
I think I've got one in these drawers, mate. Yeah. We can stick it on whilst we talk.
And not only then, nothing except about my own injuries, but know nothing about medicine and whatnot. And I just thought like, but this is shit. Right? You literally telling us to do has a knee pain, put electrodes on shoulder pain, put electrodes on. I was like, I'm not gonna fucking do that. Absolutely no way. Because I thought that's just shooting ducks in the dark, right? It's like you do one size fits all. You're gonna burn out in like 2 weeks, right? Like you need to. So from the day one, then I went down the manual therapy route because for me there was this thing called clinical reasoning. I was educated in a thing called the Maitland concept, which, and what his foundations were is like it's not about the technique. Technique is a result of ingenuity, and I like that. He said, I'm not teaching you techniques, I'm teaching you how to think. And that's ultimately what people pay me for, right? It's or I think at least what my greatest strength is. Yeah. I'm 100% sure there's people who manipulate better than me, they do tissue work better than me, 100%. And I'm happy sometimes to refer people on for that. They say, look, can't get that joint, go and see this guy, he nails it, right? Yeah. But this year, that's my superpower. Like there's this, in this concept was the concept of clinical reasoning, which you do every day. I do every day. Yeah. Because you have a problem and you solve a problem and you think the moment the client starts to talk, you have like 50 highways opening up mentally, thinking could be this, could be that, could be that. I could fix like this, could fix like that. You ask questions, you test, and you do the same, right? Yeah. I do the same with coaches. Yeah. And then figure out, okay, this is, they would flag this, flag that. So if I fix this, this should bring us closer to our target. That's clinical reasoning. At the same time, you think, okay, is it dangerous? Because if, not many things are dangerous, but is it something that can make worse or damage something, right? That's a different, I'm not talking about this. This is anyway, that's where, there's never total rest, right? But off that particular structure, pivot, scale it, work around it until it heals itself, and then we'll start moving again. But so this is ultimately then first figuring that out yourself, and then it's all about coaching people through that process, right? And I have learned probably some of my best teachers were coaches. They're not medical practitioners, and I could, I can name a few. If I come into a session with you, I'm 100% sure I walk home with 5-6 light bulb moments and I think, oh shit, it's really good. That's why I reached out to you recently when I had an ultra runner and then who had a problem. I was like, well, or somebody had to learn, like prepare somebody to run again. It's like, who better to call than you? I mean, you have you have just so much more experience on that, and it's because I respect you, but also because that's your expertise. It's less my expertise, and this is therapy. What do you do?
Are we going towards technology or away from technology?
Don't know. This is that's a tricky. Well, we clearly as humanity, or no, humanity is actually the wrong word in this context. In the world, because humanity has to be a fear we're losing some of that, right, or quite a lot of that. But as a human race, we're clearly going towards technology, right? And that has advantages and that has lots of fears involved, right? But in our profession, per se, I think I hope we're not going too much towards technology, because we're going, again, with this, we run a danger that we're trying to kind of compartmentalize too much and throw people in a bucket. Yeah. Right? That's a bit the problem. I think, talk about AI and stuff like this. People ask, your profession will never be affected. Well, depends, right? You can look, AI could find out like clinical data and studies, etc. Can do this within like 2 seconds, right? Where I need to do a research for about 2 weeks. That could be helpful. The danger is that people then always want to automate stuff, right? And say, okay, the AI will tell me exactly what to do and spit out the program. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think it may assist. But that human touch, and talk about fear, right? If you come in and you're a bit scared of movement, like computer can't feel that, right? It's like, and me knowing exactly, do you need, or for you, right? Do you need the Marcus that just fucking do it, right? Or you need the Marcus that puts the arm around the patient, like, listen, it's gonna be fine. Honestly, we've been there. these are this interpersonal stuff, and that's always going to be important.
Yeah.
No, and I think it's really important. Again, coaching. You know, if you have remote, do you have remote clients? I have remote clients. And I was telling them, I said, you don't pay me to make you a movement program every single week.
Yeah.
I'm there to hold your hand to the process. I'm here to adhere to when something doesn't make sense, it doesn't feel the way it should, and you're confused. Is this okay? Is that not okay? Like to literally, the moment this question pops in your head, I'm here to tell you, look, it's fine. Move through unless X, Y, and Z, and then we pivot, right? And it's not just like, here's a movement program, do it.
Yeah.
And I think that technology can make your life easy, but there's a danger of generalizing stuff again, you know. So it can be a step forward, also a step backwards. Me personally, honestly, at this stage, I'm more worried about it than not worried is the wrong word, but I'm more concerned about it than I look forward to. Let's put it that way.
Because it's people's reliance. And from what we've spoken about so far, mate, a lot of what you're doing, that's why we understand things the same. You're trying to create a heightened state of awareness for the patient. Yeah. And that's all we're doing when I'm trying to get someone to run 200 kilometers, 100 kilometers, or 5 kilometers, whether they're trying to heal a complete knee reconstruction or a, very dull hamstring tear. Mm-hmm. We're trying to lead that person to be aware of their body and mind. Yeah. How does tech do that? It doesn't. Like, it can't.
You mean technology?
It can't, right? AI can't.
No.
We ran a marathon in Amsterdam a week ago now, and on the morning, and I've only recently come back to heart rate variability, just to do a little bit of a test around intensity. It's almost like a case study on myself. Mm-hmm. And I didn't not want to test on the morning of the race because I wanted that data. And it's like, why am I avoiding it? But every time, all through my marathons, HRV every single morning. And for a number of years, HRV for Training app, I think it's one of the easiest. And that morning, like, I just know. And I can't quite figure out why, because I slept really well, but I always know that when it's race day or event day, heart rate's up by a couple of beats and HRV is poor.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, so there is a reliance on data, but I know that, so the data doesn't, but then I asked myself on that morning, how do I feel? I feel great. Why? Because I've slept 9 hours. The room was a good temperature. I was in the bed on my own. I was fully hydrated. And then you're in this place, and that's what you're talking about. That's awareness. Yeah. That's knowing what pain feels like, and that's being in touch. And like, when did I start using HRV for training? Maybe 10 years ago. The 10 years ago, Marcus would have gone, fuck, it's race day. My HRV's down. I'm fucked. Like, I can't do this. Yeah. And I would have had those doubts. Whereas now I'm like, what does it matter? Because I have a heightened state of self-awareness. And it's the same with injuries. Yeah. So, I
had that experience with, I used to whoop for a while because, everybody wears one of those bloody things, right? So I thought, like, well, let's see what the hype is about.
Yeah.
And I wore it for a few months and just, looked a bit like what the data is. And I used it less for exercise, used it more for recovery. Actually, that's what for me was more important. And the conclusion in the end was like, you almost become a bit of a slave of that thing, because I try to go to bed in time anyway, so I don't necessarily need like a thing to tell me this, right? And
you've got a Casio watch to tell you what time it is.
Exactly. But the interesting thing was, like, I'm like, you and I, we know what's good for us and what's not good for us. Like, we know our bodies. And I came to the conclusion, long story short, I think this is really good for somebody who doesn't know themselves at all. They don't know what rest is, how alcohol influences them, how God knows what. And so you realize, holy shit, my recovery is actually horrible if I do this or do that, etc. And so that's a smart thing about it. Somebody who already knows the body quite well. For me, it was more like, okay, I knew this bad for me. I didn't know how bad it was for me, for this, but I knew this after like 2-3 weeks, like, okay, good. So what else, right?
Yeah.
And I think, so in this aspect, it can really help, technology, I think. Yeah. But you take, at deal with like pro athletes as well, and though like in a certain field, and whoop is very very how do you say, prevalent. And often I had 2-3 people that said, listen, like 2 weeks before your competition, that thing goes in a drawer. Yeah. Because, like you said, if you wake up, I don't know, semi-final, CrossFit or games day, you wake up, you feel like an absolute champ, you look at the recovery and it's shit, it's red, right? What's it going to do to your mind?
No matter how strong you are mentally,
this will affect you. Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what you mentioned before. And this is just not good. Yeah. Like, and I had these situations where I woke up like, wow, a champion, I could rip out trees now. And then my recovery was terrible. And I was like, oh, and this thing, I said, I'll not let this thing tell me how I'm supposed to feel today. Yeah. And then the opposite extreme, if you like absolute, like, oh my God, got hit by a truck and it says green, well done, 95% recovered. Like, I do not feel that way at all. And so, as you said, like how you feel, but also for you knowing, okay, I know this is usually what happens. It's like you go to the doctor and they measure your blood pressure. It will always be, 10%, 20% higher because we don't get nervous about this, but you do.
It's hilarious, mate. I've seen it a lot with my parents. When was it? It was, they wouldn't give the COVID injection if your blood pressure was too high, would they? Yeah. So the stress of getting mum and dad to the COVID injections, and especially here, it wasn't a simple process. Let's put it like that. They got stressed along the way. They checked their blood pressure at home in the morning because they'd read that they won't get the vaccination unless it's done. And of course, they get there and it's high. And I'm with the nurse and she's looking at me and I'm like, can you give it to him? She goes, if you say yes. I was like, just give him the injection, But it's anxiety around the process of going there and getting it, which is interesting. Mate, you mentioned one thing. And one thing I always think about with a physio, and it's similar to, it's very similar to what we do to training, is where do we go as we go old? And there's a lot of people. I often see our mutual friend Malcolm Gregory still walking on the beach. He's 75, still loves to treat patients 2 or 3 days a week. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the last sort of 5 years, you love that side of it, but you've seen another route, and this is the brand that you've got. Tell us a little bit what you're doing in that space. And you mentioned it earlier, online. How do you manipulate someone? Well, you can manipulate people online. Let's not go down that route.
Not physically.
Physical manipulation online. Talk to us about that, mate, because it's a really interesting space that you've sort of moved into.
Yeah, I'm happy you bring this up. Yeah, like what I do in the clinic, I do more and more coaching, right? So like my manual skills is more like showing people they can get themselves better, but then afterwards it's about what patients do themselves. And so essentially what I love about, so when I started this, it started actually before COVID. And a lot of people got into the whole online thing during COVID. And for me, thank God, I actually had a bit of a loaded gun already. Like I've been working on this quite a bit and knew it works, and I could really fall back on that. Yeah. And COVID lockdowns was a blessing for me in a way. I mean, I don't mean any disrespect to anybody where it was a tough time, of course. But for me, that in this aspect certainly helped. That could knock this out of the ballpark a bit more. And, people became more open to this idea. Because that's exactly the question people ask me. It's like, well, how do you do when I, do something with my hands? But how do you do this online? Well, I don't. But there's ways, the stuff I teach you afterwards is the stuff you really need. I said, you don't really need my hands. Look, for me as well, it's definitely an advantage if I can touch someone, if I can move things around, feel it. It definitely helps, there's no doubt about it. But it's not necessary because, again, as I said, this is your reasoning, what's going on, analyze the situation, trying to figure out, okay, this is the most likely scenario, what's going on here, and how do we solve it? I solve problems, same like you, right? That's what I'm paid for. Yeah. And that's what I try to make people understand, is that it's not about the technique, it's about the intent of how you set the managed plan up. And it is more than just doing strengthening exercise and balance exercise and whatnot. It's as you said before, like manage sleep, hydration is a big one. Like I am like electrolyte hydration, I've been preaching this for years. It's became really, really fancy, thank God, recently. So people again are more open to it. But it's so people call me I have clients all around the world. But I sounds a bit full. I don't mean to sound full of myself at all. So I have people everywhere. It doesn't matter where they are. But the point is, they're not in Dubai. They're somewhere in Europe. They could be in America. They can be in Australia. I had in Africa, like in many different places. And so the good thing is when somebody reaches out remotely, right? They know I cannot manipulate them. They know I cannot touch them. They usually know, okay, I'm going to have to solve this problem myself, and this guy will help me. So in many ways, I think it's almost superior to more and more I feel that way. Because
well, it's that expectation thing that we spoke about, right? So no one's calling you up on Zoom asking for their back cracked yet.
Exactly. In a way, it helps me because, it's clear. My job is pretty clear. Yet there's obviously still a bit of a skepticism. Yeah. And then again, like in a clinic, it's about getting people on board, right? Letting them realize, okay, if somebody reaches out from Las Vegas and says, listen, I've seen 2 chiropractors and 3 osteopaths and 5 physios, like I'm exaggerating a little bit, but usually I've seen until you reach to somebody living in Dubai, halfway across the planet, and do a remote, you went through a few disappointments, right? Yeah. And so, there's skepticism. But what I tell them is I take my time. I send them a questionnaire. I want to know exactly. Anyone know everything about them? Then we have a first call where we talk through it, all open questions. We do a physical exam or some of the self-testing. I have a whole battery of self-tests. What I would test, they can test themselves. Right. But it's more on what they feel than what I feel. Right. And that already is part of the therapy, right? To make them more self-aware. Like, oh, hang on a second. Actually, that hip feels different than the other hip. And that's then you're also like, oh, hang on, actually, if I change that, I'll probably get a little bit better, right? Already. So that skepticism vanishes pretty quickly. And then usually I send them a so-called test program where I give them certain techniques where I want to know more if what I'm thinking is really correct. And so they give me feedback, not just send me videos of how they do it, but also how does that feel compared to this? Where do you feel that? How tight does it feel? How much effort is it to move through that movement? And that kind of narrows me in on, okay, I think my thesis is correct. And then we make proper protocols. Right. But again, then it's not about sending only a program, it's also coaching them through them. So these one-on-one clients stay in contact with me by WhatsApp. And I tell them, I said, if some doubt crosses your mind, am I okay to do this or not? And you can't figure out based on what I taught you, I'm just a text away. Yeah. Whereas in a clinic, I'll come in 2 weeks, and they come back and said, how is it? Yeah, still painful. Okay, try this, try that. Another 2 weeks, yeah, still painful. I can react very quickly, and that's what a lot of these clients say after. Say, you know what? It's just so much more effective, so much more. Yeah.
But we miss that key part as well, like. And this is actually for my own benefit, this question, mate, because obviously I have clients online and around the world as well. That connection that you've been used to for so many years in the clinic of actually being in someone's presence. Like you say, sometimes you would go over there and do the stretch. You don't even have to touch them, but that feeling of the energy of being with someone. How do you, and I know these, like, For my clients, they've started as online clients. So it's not like they were in Dubai and then, because I think that's super challenging. Like when someone has had you in person, then the start point is a bit different and then they're away. It's kind of hard. But how, loving the connection part so much and feeling so strong with that, how do you cope with that when you're helping someone in a online scenario?
You mean how you create that connection? Or
how do you I'm trying to understand a little bit how you feel about it, mate, because you have a big physical presence. You're a tall guy, you're 100 kilos, thereabouts.
Just slightly below, yeah.
Slightly massive. You should watch the video version, massive biceps. Like you've got a big presence, mate, and you've got a deep voice and you're, or you have this energy when every time someone comes into the room with you, you have an energy. Yeah. How do you create, and you like energy of people? You like, for the most part, you like people. I know.
You do.
At 7 o'clock on a Friday night, and you've seen all these patients the whole week. I know you don't like people, but how do you cope with that lack of human connection working in the online space?
Yeah, that's it. That's an interesting question because you have some remote clients who then you finally meet them in person, right? After like a year work with them. It's the weirdest thing. It's the weirdest thing. It's like, I mean, I have, it's like for one of my athletes, I started working with during COVID because everybody's locked down in the country, right? And then when we met each other, it's like, you known each other for ages. But you don't.
But you don't.
Right? It's so strange.
Yeah.
Like you give each other a hug because you know each other, but like you never seen each other. It's totally weird. But that means there is a connection, right?
Yeah,
but it's obviously that helps them to meet these people in person. But I don't know. It's like, you said it. I mean, in both our professions, we have the same profession. If you ask me, honestly, I mean that. You need to fundamentally like people, right? Yeah. Otherwise, you're really on the wrong train here. And and if you feel like this connection doesn't work, so that's the thing. Sometimes you feel like you don't fully click. You can know when I was 1 or 2 years into my practice, like, oh, sorted, I'll refer him on, right? Or online, you can't really do this either, and that I never had to. Yeah. But it's you take on a challenge, you make that relationship work. And I normally, when I have a first call with an online or remote client, then, that call is also, I tell them, listen, if you don't like what we do there, we can part ways, doesn't cost you a penny. Right. That's what I do for one. If they feel like they don't see what's happening, I don't want unhappy clients. And so far it never happened. As fuck that, I don't want to work with you. Thank God, touch wood. Yeah. But I mean, not being in the same room has its challenges, but you still make a connection and like you help them through stuff, and I think that connects as well. It's like when they realize he's literally coaching me through it. I tell people I'm holding your hand through the process as much as you need me to. Yeah. And I think that builds a different connection. But definitely is a challenge, for sure. And you mentioned presence, right? Often when I meet people in person, they're like, oh, shit, I didn't know you were that big. And you can see in their eyes, and this is a funny thing. I mean, I think it's all about connections in our job. It's all about that relationship. With some people it's closer than with others, but if you can't make that somehow, then it's just going to be a struggle. Yeah. And undoubtedly, I mean, in person that's a little bit easier to achieve, but I think you just learn to do this in different ways.
From what I understood, a lot of your remote stuff and you've had an interest in functional fitness and in CrossFit. Yeah. Has that just happened naturally, mate? You work more, or do you work more with CrossFit athletes online than others, or how does it work? And maybe talk a little bit about your relationship with CrossFit, because I know it's something you've done and now you're helping people broken. Are we happy with CrossFit? Are we where are we at with the whole thing?
Well, first of all, that's a question I get a lot. I mean, I love the sport. Oh, don't get me wrong. And so most of us in that space, we have an appreciation for that. But I don't treat exclusively CrossFit athletes. And also I don't treat exclusively athletes. That's another thing I really have to put out there, because for me, I would say everybody's an athlete. Everybody who has active goals I treat them like an athlete. Nice. That doesn't mean I'm going to push them to the max. It's just like somebody who really has very small goals supposedly, and just to be able to go for a walk an hour every day. The level of activity is different, intensity is different, but they come from somewhere where I have to get better, and they work certain foundations to get there. So I don't make a difference, and I enjoy that equally much. I have to say that. CrossFit is something which I'm not somebody who has been to regionals and stuff. I can put this out. I always had a love for moving, a love for learning new things. And again, you mentioned I'm just around 100 kilos. So for me to do a strict ring muscle up is a bit of a challenge, right? And that's how I got into it.
Even with those biceps, mate, come on.
It's not only bicep, as you know, unfortunately, right? But I just saw someone do it once, and I thought like, damn, I want to do that, right? And it took me a long time to get there, but step by step. And that's what the fascination for movement comes from. It's just, you need to optimize, right? Every muscle and joint has to do exactly what they're meant to be in the right position, the right moment. And that's for me the fascination of movement and training and therapy. And actually through my training of calisthenics and whatnot, I loved it. Again, obviously physically a bit challenging, the levers and the weight, but I managed. It just took me maybe 3-4 times as long as everybody else. But what I learned about therapy, how to actually treat someone through this, is probably been more valuable than anything I ever learned in university, for sure. And so from there, I can, brought the barbell out and started throwing barbells around again, and I love it. And you get a few injuries along the way, which actually would never I think. No, it's not true. They're not ever related with CrossFit. And then you have a bit of setback and you come back up. And so that's what my clients go through. But I've been, you treat a few people who do CrossFit well, and then obviously you attract more of that kind.
Yeah.
And I've been never intending to exclusively do this. Until today I don't. I love treating CrossFit athletes because they're driven.
Yes.
They do whatever it takes to get back. They want to get better. They really invest time and don't just put money there. They really work, and that's something which, or general athletes, right?
Yeah.
But I'm, somebody who is not very athletic and wants a problem solved and has been unlucky with it. I'm equally interested in helping them. They shouldn't be discouraged from contacting me.
Yeah.
I've worked with a Olympic rower, single sculler. She was world champion and twice Olympian. That's interesting. Not totally unrelated to CrossFit because they row as well.
Yeah.
But I didn't know quite as much about rowing. I'm pretty good at it myself. And there, for instance, that was my job. They actually heard me on a podcast, a coach on her.
No way.
And they contacted me and said, can we have a call? We did. And so her quest was going to her third Olympics, 24 in Paris. And so she's been missing 5 to 6 seconds to the podium. She came 5th twice in Rio and in Tokyo. And so my job, basically, we defined my job as I need to find those 5-6 seconds off the water.
Right.
With optimizing biomechanics, strength conditioning, work and weakness. And we found quite a few seconds, and
Wow.
So that's something which I absolutely loved, right? This is like a challenge.
Yeah.
And then you read yourself into this. It's not what you wanted to ask me, though. You said the CrossFit, what do I think? I think CrossFit is a fantastic sport. I think the general population thinks, it's very injury prone. You must have it must be a great sport for you as a therapist. And
always busy.
Yeah, but I think this is a bit unfair to the sport because,
I think so.
If you play football, you're not fit, right? And you just work all day and you're a bit late to training or a game and you skid in sideways into the parking lot and, quickly one stretch and start playing. I think that's more dangerous than CrossFit
class, right?
Yeah, that too, right? Yeah. And so in any sport, you're going to get hurt sooner or later, or maybe you're lucky and you don't, but that's where the injuries comes from.
Yeah.
But I think there's the sport of CrossFit, and there's CrossFit as in, which was created originally to get people better and healthier.
General
right?
physical preparedness.
Exactly. And I think that part, and what people understand is CrossFit is that.
Yeah.
Getting people healthy, getting people with diabetes, out of obesity, etc. And there is no better sport in the world to get this done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's the sport of CrossFit, which, we all see these jacked people and the fit girls, and they throw like 100 and something kilos and they snatch overhead.
Yeah.
And I think if you are not preparing yourself, resting, eating, all of that like the pros, don't try to do that sport like the pros. Because for the average person, put 80 to 100 kilos overhead, if they can, is downright dangerous, right? I think.
Absolutely.
For me,
man.
for sure. If you would ask me now, do a max out your snatch now, well, you can call an ambulance probably.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to, people ask me, what's your 1 rep max deadlift? I say, I don't know.
Who cares?
I haven't tested that forever because... I work my percentages off my 5 rep max, for instance, and that's good enough for me, right? Plus, I don't need the percentages quite as much as some others, but I think, I have to be careful not getting on too slippery slope here, but I love the sport, and I think it's a great sport. Yeah. And I don't think, and there's actually studies backing this up, I don't think we have any more injuries from CrossFit than any other rugby, football, and so on. Yeah? No. Paddle tennis. I see more people playing paddle tennis these days than CrossFit.
Yeah.
Sorry, more people getting injured through paddle. Yeah. I see more CrossFitters wanting not to get injured. They have a bit of a stiffness and nickel, and that's what I love. When people say, you know what, I feel like if I keep going there, I might get into trouble. And that's where my passion is. You don't have to niggle. It doesn't have to feel that way. And if you do X, Y, and C, you're actually going to have a much better experience.
Yeah, right.
It's a long loop to answer your question.
No, it's, mate, and one thing that maybe sort of close out on is what's always been amazing about you is it's not just about professional athletes and your energy and your passion to have people move better with less pain, and the way that you're coaching it. Like, I've sent you all sorts of different people, and I've seen you treating all sorts of different people, and I've had people come to me that have been treated by you that, we never even knew that we shared them, so to speak. And they're from all walks of life, because you're your approach to physio is coaching, is connection, is awareness, and that expectation. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation, because I think I bash the medical industry a lot, because I think a lot.
So do I.
Yeah, and you do as well, mate. And I think it's fair, but it's unfair to guys like you, because as people probably have drawn their own conclusion through this conversation, all that you're doing is you're trying to help people be in less pain, move better, and therefore live better, which is really cool, because you found, same that I found coaching CrossFit or coaching running to make humanity a little bit better. You found this thing called Physio, and you're able to do the same. And like you said a few times, we're very similar, except you're a lot smarter than me, and you can, you know. So it's, mate, I think it's awesome. This has been a really good chat, and people should reach out. I think it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't really matter. Yes, if you can see Nick in person here in Dubai, that'd be awesome, and you realize that he's a big dude and you won't fuck with him. Or online, and what do? Do you put up a stick picture of your profile online so people think you're a little guy? But yeah, how should people get hold of you, mate? Where do you practice, and what's the best way to get hold of you?
Well, here in person, a clinic, I work at a place called Heel Hub, which is close to Kite Beach. We're a clinic of multidisciplinary, with a multidisciplinary team. We have chiropractors, osteopaths, physios, massage therapists. We have cold plunge. We have red light. So we're trying to have a bit of a, I don't like the one-stop shop, because it sounds way too commercial. It's not that. It's just people. Sometimes they have to go there, pay this much for our cold plunge. They go, my chiropractor's there, etc. We're trying to kind of, also feed off each other and say, look, okay, why don't you go? Last week, somebody sent next door and said, look, you don't need to see me, you actually need to see him. Nice. No charge, go there, and no harm. So that's what it's about. So Heel Hub is where I practice in person. And it doesn't mean I do massage. I do, sometimes we put hands on. I do the same thing as I do online. For online clients, it's through my Instagram. Yep. mmtm.online. Awesome. Stands for momentum. So most people there probably get in touch with me by Instagram, or people have my WhatsApp and they reach out there. And again, I'm saying this one more time. You mentioned athletes. I'm not just treating athletes. I'm not chasing that either. Don't get me wrong. It's fun. I love it. It's a completely different challenge and responsibilities, but this is not, I do not just treat athletes, and I'm not chasing this, but I've been fortunate enough that I have quite a few in my care, and it's good for marketing.
And you're doing a good job, mate.
Yeah.
You should give yourself praise.
Thank you. Thank you.
No,
but true. I honestly don't want people to be discouraged, online or offline, to come to me if they have just, I say this not sarcastically, just trouble bending down, tying the shoelaces, because, it might not be an athletic goal, but it's still a health goal, right? And I'm helping with these things as well, and I have customers like this. And just hit me up.
Awesome. Nick Jordan, thank you very much, mate. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.